How do you show two characters falling in love? It's sort of an impossible question. It might be the most internal development out there. And yet, romance is everywhere in media. Look no further than the trending books area of a Barnes & Noble to get more than a few takes on romance. Anime has its own shorthand when it comes to a deeper connection between two characters. The techniques are ubiquitous. The blushes, the stolen glances, hand-holding, and much more. One of the more unique hallmarks of the genre is the abundance of these abstract, colorful backgrounds when characters are connecting. It's like a mix between watercolor and pastel artboards. These backgrounds are not always around, but they're pretty common. What would it look like to iterate off of something as entrenched as this? How do you take a classic style and turn it into something entirely new? Lucky for us, someone did just that. Let's talk about it. Let's start with the classic abstract backgrounds. These colorful little worlds all do the same general thing. They isolate our subjects in pivotal moments of emotional change or growth, giving space for these subtler shifts to really sink in. They also remind me of Squidward in the All Alone place. As dumb as that comparison is, I do think that they kind of serve the same purpose. Squidward introspects in that space, realizing he doesn't want to be all alone. The exact same thing is happening in our anime scenes. These are all just visual representations of what it's like to retreat into your head. Horimiya is one of my all-time favorite shows, and uses these sorts of shots as its signature flair. Not always specifically romantic, but whenever there is a moment that feels almost impossible to put into words, these shots cover that space adeptly. They're kinda like the blank spaces on a Wheel of Fortune puzzle. Alone, they mean nothing, but with enough letters around them, you can infer what they mean. There's also the matter of how these shots slot into the shows in which they appear. Part of what makes them so striking is how they are just injected into the scenes without warning. This startling intrusion yanks us out of the world in which the show is taking place, something that I think makes them more effective. It's attention-grabbing and takes these quieter moments and makes them the focal point of the scene. Not in a hand-holding way though. The stylization has a self-justifying effect that prevents them from feeling ham-handed. Overall, I think it's a really effective way to grab a viewer and say, hey, something important is going on here. But Dandadan, in the 7th episode of Season 2, took this idea and ran with it. I'm sure it's not the only time that someone has subverted this trope, but it really stood out to me as something unique. This episode in general was stellar, opening with Okarun at the maid cafe where Momo works. The dynamic between Momo's friends teasing her and our two main characters clearly embarrassed pairs so nicely with some really lively and layered visuals. Then, when Okarun stays behind and offers to walk Momo home, we get another awesome moment. The long pause when Momo has denied his request and he begins to walk away is great because of how it subverts expectations. We expect Momo to call out to him, or Okarun to turn around, but instead we feel the moment pass. It's a heavy moment, without any specific visual flair. And then we get a montage of Momo at work. Nothing too crazy, but an example of montage at a really high level. Seeing Momo wear down through it is so relatable to anyone running out the clock at work. Okay, the scene is finally set. Now for the main attraction. Momo leaves work and emerges onto the brightly lit street. As she looks around, clearly for Okarun, everything about the scene's composition is normal. But then it all changes with this shot and the ones moving forward. The lights from the street become the colorful background as Okarun arrives and he and Momo share a moment together. And dude, this is just so awesome. First off, using the actual streetlights to make up the abstract background is clever because of the flexibility it gives you in the shots available. Whereas the other backgrounds we've seen are necessarily flat, here we understand where we are, so the show can pull off a shot like this one, where Momo turns and looks at Okarun. The lights also play with the shadows in the background, based on which shot we are on. In addition to that, we also get more interesting lighting on Okarun and Momo, because it makes sense. In the abstract void of other scenes, the lighting is flat because there's no clear source for it. Here, we've seen the signs and streetlights that are making up this beautiful background. We're really getting the best of both worlds. The shots are super artistic and evocative, but we still feel rooted in this scene. I also love how natural this background feels because of how it imitates shots we see in live-action media. Anytime you have a moderately long lens and bright lights get out of focus, you get this circular effect. It's striking on its own, and recreating it for an animated medium adds an extra layer of flair. The intersection between all of these interesting angles makes this scene really special to me. It's a fresh take on a genre staple that is still eminently recognizable for what it is. Are there any downsides to this execution? I can think of a couple, actually. Grounding the scene in the world of the show does make the shots feel less surreal, and maybe a bit less jarring as a result. If your aim is to fully maximize getting the viewer's attention, this could make the technique less effective. Also, if the abstract world of past shows is meant to fully actualize the internal thoughts of our characters, this also kind of detracts from that mission. I guess downsides is the wrong word. I just can think of reasons that you wouldn't choose to do something like this over the traditional way. If you can think of others, or didn't like the scene, I'd love to hear why in the comments. After what, in my opinion, was a shaky opening to Season 2, Dandadan has been balling out recently. Just in this episode alone, there were other shots that really blew me away. But none made me pause and think more than this scene between Okarun and Momo. It was a small, quiet moment in some ways, but aren't those always the best parts of any romance story? The grand gestures are nice, but the gentler beats grow the relationship just as much, if not more. I'm glad to see one given such care here. If you enjoyed, liking and subscribing helps a ton and will keep you in the loop on future uploads. I'm SlamAnime, and have a great rest of your day.